Montalvo Broadcasting Network. Support MBN, Montalvo Broadcasting Network, and shop with us over at Montalvo Store. Go to ebay.com and search in the advanced search. Type in Montalvo Store. Now support Montalvo Broadcasting Network. We have a wide array of books on conspiracy, apparel, and much more. Support your favorite radio station, Montalvo Broadcasting Network, by visiting Montalvo Store on ebay.com.
Tribal, primitive, rustic, Burning Man, punk rock, conceptual subculture for the edgiest, most cutting-edge designs of jewelry today. Go to etsy.com/shop/conceptual subculture, or one word, either by going to Google or search Etsy, ETSY.com, and type in one word, conceptual subculture. You will find the hottest designs using natural stones with wire wrap rings, rough, raw, genuine, semi-precious gemstone jewelry, solid sterling silver, copper, leather, orgonite, bracelets, pendants, chokers, men's copper cups with sterling accents, eco-friendly, repurposed, original, one-of-a-kind design earrings. Support MBN by going to Conceptual Subculture on Etsy. Go to Antique Obsessions for the hottest in jewelry, antiques, repurposed, solid sterling silver, one-of-a-kind, handmade by Bruce and Jah Jah. Go to our Facebook, which is Antique Obsessions, or you can go to Etsy.com and go to Antique Obsessions, one word, or type it into your Google and find us there. Thanks.
The stylish and hippest clothing around. Go to Poshmark.com. Poshmark.com at Anti-Culture. At Anti-Culture. The coolest, hippest apparel on the internet. Poshmark.com at Anti-Culture. Bruce Montalvo.
Continues to spread conspiracy theories.
Penchant for promoting bogus conspiracies as though they were fact.
About his conspiracy theory.
This is CNN, a network of China Broadcasting System.
Bruce Montalvo is the only radio talk show host that's not controlled. You're listening to the Bruce Montalvo Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special episode of the Bruce Montalvo Show. And we have a very special guest that will be joining us on today's show. We will be sticking it to who I like to call the merchants of death, doctors, the pharmaceutical, anybody that thinks that you're a quack for using what they call folk remedies. He is a practicing herbalist since 1982. Many lectures, and continues to do great work. You could find him online at MatthewWoodsHerbs.com or Matthew Woods Herbs. Yeah, that's MatthewWoodsHerbs.com and Matthew Woods Institute of Herbalism.com. And he joins us today. I'm also joined by my co-host, Jah Jah. Hello, Jah Jah.
Hey.
So here he is. He's joining us now. Matthew Wood. Hello.
Hi. Yes, how are we doing?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for being on, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So how'd you get started? How'd you get started in this quest to know about all these herbs? I mean, since 1982, you've been doing it.
I've been practicing, since 81 or 82. And how I got into it, when I was 13, I read the teachings of Don Juan, and I realized that plants were reference points for consciousness, and they were a lot more fixed in time, and they didn't waver like humans and change all the time, so they were reliable. So I thought, well, that's a good way to learn about human consciousness, really. And
right.
So, and I just became obsessed with herbalism. It just was my life calling. I'd say by age 15, I'm sure, maybe by age 13. And I started studying the plants. I took my first botany class when I was 18. And there weren't really herbalists to study with at that time. Not any that I knew. I guess William Lasassier, a mutual friend, he existed, but I didn't hear of him for a while. So that's how I started way back in, let's see, about 1981, 82, spring of 82. Yeah, winter of 82, I started in the herb store at Present Moment Herbs in South Minneapolis, and I have Bob Gallagher, the late Bob Gallagher, owner of that store, to thank for getting me going on my career. So
nice.
So that's it, in short.
It's incredibly interesting. You have the what I find interesting is the tree stumps. When you have a tree stump, you see it. It has a human fingerprint. It has its own human fingerprint. I heard you say, the life. You have the flower of life, the Garden of Eden, the tree of life. I mean, do we come from plants? I mean, we have the endocannabinoid system. I mean, we're part plant, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're much more mixed up altogether. We're so much intimately part of our environment. We can't see this from our macro situation, but we have the microbiome in our gut, which is part fungi and microorganisms. The soil has its biome, and everybody is communicating to everybody all the time, and the border between disease, pathogen, bacteria, and our own cells and healthy bacteria and unhealthy bacteria is all pretty hard to figure out. So we're truly interconnected, and really at some point they're going to have to, they'll wake up and actually feel how, we can talk to all these critters. I don't know, I haven't talked to bacteria, but you can talk to plants and animals and humans back and forth, etc. So, yeah, so the boundaries are more and more diffuse.
Right. Wow. Incredible.
So at what point, going back to William a little bit, so what year did you meet my old teacher and friend, William Lasassier?
When did I meet him? It would be about 92, 93, 94, somewhere in there. I was at the Green Nations conference in Phoenicia that a lot of New Yorkers would remember from New York City, or just people from that general area. It was up the Hudson. It was actually a small venue, I suppose, for conferences have gotten bigger, but there still was a couple hundred people there. And he was there, and we just clicked immediately, and even could read each other's minds a little bit. I remember while I was talking about something when I was lecturing, I hadn't really met him yet, but somebody pointed him out in the audience, and I could feel him agreeing with something I was saying like, yeah, that's correct. And so he and I had a lot of experiences that were similar. He had more experience. He was a little bit older, had been an herbalist for at least 10 years longer than I've been, maybe 15. 15 is when you really start to figure out what's going on. 15 years, in my opinion.
Right.
So, I went to him. One of the last things that I was trying to deal with William was a head injury. I was attacked by one of my students. And he said,
Whoa.
Yeah, it was, but I just read one of your articles, which is fabulous, on woodherbs, .com. And you recommend calamus and peony for head injuries to be able to speak again, because I progressively got worse, and then I feel like I missed out on possibly healing because I didn't know you.
Yeah. Well, you can talk okay now.
Well, it was a kind of a miracle. It took too long to heal. Seriously. So if I knew about the peony and the calamus that I just read on your website, woodherbs.com, I mean, really, it's pretty amazing. Also, right here, when I moved to Tucson, we noticed that the bacteria here, maybe it's really weird because the temperature, the climate is very different. The skin gets super clammy. I've never dealt with this before. I'm a total East Coaster, and I was reading also on your website about sumac and how it could maybe draw. Would that work to curb some of the bacterial elements in the Wild West?
Well, you actually have clammy skin in that dry environment.
Yes.
Yeah, you do? Oh, well, that's pretty unusual. Yeah, so that is a symptom. So this is also found in Chinese medicine, but your periphery is too open, as they would say. I guess they put it well. You're in the wintertime, especially, and in dry weather, the sweat pores should be closed. You're not losing water and energy that way. There's no reason to sweat. Sweating is for hot weather to cool us off, and if you're sweating in the wintertime, it's counterproductive and wearing, and you want to curtail that. And sumac, and it's not a common remedy, but wild bergamot, which is a beautiful remedy. That's another good one for clammy skin. And generally with sumac, you also pee too much, so the kidneys are affected as well. That's just like in alternative medicine, we treat these sorts of things, where in regular medicine they just ignore them.
Oh yeah.
Like I turned 65 and I got my Medicare. Got on Medicare because you have to. They force you to sign up for it. And I don't mind anyways. You start wearing out when you get old anyways. But so I went in to get tests because I thought I had a kidney stone. I had a pain just about like you have, just similar place that you mentioned in your text message to me. I had an MRI and just to see if I had stones, and I didn't have stones in either gallbladder or kidneys. And then it's just like, well, okay, that's it. You're on your own. But I got this severe pain. Yeah, well, we're not. It's nothing that we care about. It's like, what? Well, they just ignore it because you don't fit their slot. I mean, I hadn't been to a doctor in so long. I didn't really realize to what extent they just can't really deal with things that are off their chart at all. So he was a nice guy. He respected me as an herbalist, etc. So
that's good.
Yeah, I read some of your stories about people who were called. They get mad. The doctors sometimes get mad at the people just because they use a traditional, like an herbal remedy. They get. I haven't had a couple of times I've healed myself with herbs, and I still had to go to the doctors. And they said, "Well, wow, you healed so fast. There was a
it's a miracle.
How did you do it? And I told them, and they were like, "Oh, okay, well, keep doing it." And they don't really know how to register with herbs.
I know. No, and they just said, "Oh, okay." They don't have any way to write it down and make use of it because they've disowned this whole part of life a long time ago, 100 years ago or something. So we're kind of like the non-muggles and the muggles in Harry Potter. We're just living in a completely different reference system and atmosphere and worldview that never the twain shall meet, just about, because the way they defined it, they've just kind of cut off everything having to do with intuition, imagination, magic.
Yeah,
that's right.
Etc.
Well, herbs are very magical. I mean, you go back to the ancient Druids and the Celts. I mean, they had so many herbs that they considered sacred. I mean, we're in the holiday season. One of them was the mistletoe or the holly, the wolf's bane.
Yeah.
All of those, right? I mean, those have healing properties as well. They have to, right?
Yeah, that's one that I only recently began to use. Oh, excuse me. And it made me yawn, I guess, because it's a remedy for exhaustion.
It is?
And holly is a remedy I only began to use in the last 2 years for myself. And then with a few clients, and it's really valuable. It's a little toxic, so I've always used the Bach flower essence holly.
Yeah, I use that too.
As an herb instead of using the herb. Well, I've always used the herb on myself, but people keep on saying, "Oh, it's toxic. It's toxic." Even Native Americans that I talked to said, "Oh, it's toxic. You got to watch out." And I said, "Well, what do you use it for?" So, tick-borne diseases, which is exactly what I was using it for. So it's excellent for fatigue, and you get these fatigues with these chronic illnesses. It's just terrible with now, I'm not going to say it's for chronic fatigue syndrome. It's for fatigue from Lyme disease at least, and other like long-term, drawn-out viral or bacterial diseases where you just have this terrible fatigue. And actually, if you do have chronic fatigue syndrome per se, a better remedy is homeopathic remedy, gelsemium or yellow jasmine, which is for that kind of heat prostration and exhaustion. You feel, oh God, I can see why they talk so slow down south. But that's more like a sluggishness and lethargy, whereas this is like a true exhaustion. And so holly, I don't know if Dr. Bach made it from the flowers. I've never seen a holly flower, but I've made the remedy myself from the leaves. Use both the English and the American holly, and the Bach flower essence holly, which is what I recommend. Yeah.
So in your classes, excuse me, Matthew. So in your classes, if people go to your to the place, your actual place to go, do you teach them how to mix the herbs and boil them, or sometimes add alcohol? Do you that's how you teach them how to create concoctions and what they're good for?
Well, I do less of that. Let's see. I've never been that interested in the apothecary part, in the pharmacy, making them, and I always just made simple tinctures, what they call the folk method. That's just sticking a bunch of herbs in sticking a bunch of the herb in a bottle, pouring brandy or vodka or something, and you get a really good taste off it that way. But you're not making it according to any real plan. I always go for the taste. Does it taste right? Does it taste good?
William.
Does it seem to carry the properties? And that, to me, I can taste when the herb is right for my standards. So I do it fairly simplistically. I haven't really ever taught. Sorry, something's buzzing here at my parents' house. I'm in from the country here visiting around the holidays. Yeah, but at any rate, I don't teach that so much, and nowadays I teach more and more on my institute, the Matthew Wood Institute on Facebook, and and I have somebody else doing the teaching on making things, and I teach more about the properties because that's where my true love interest lies and what I'm best at. And one of the harder things in herbal medicine is, what are the properties? And that's just kind of, by this point, comes pretty natural to me. I tend to be able to see the kind of holistic, the unity behind behind the herb, how it kind of fits together to be every herb is like a personality. It's not like some sort of dead thing it's got a personality. So, wow. Yeah.
How closely related is, would you say, chemistry or alchemy to herbology, or being an herbalist?
Yeah, well, alchemy, primitive chemistry, quote unquote, that was the beginnings of chemistry and the beginning of pharmacology, or pharmacy, really, for making things. And if you like alchemy, we tend to think of making things into gold, but if you go back to the original work of the alchemist Paracelsus in the 1600s, 1700s, like you really understand what they're talking about. You see that actually it's just the basis of pharmacy down to about 1920 or so, or 30 maybe, when we really got into separating the molecules really dramatically, that they were still using the same techniques and ideas, and even the terminology a lot of the time it goes all the way back to the Renaissance. And that's when kind of the idea of making a tincture and whatnot got going, because before that it was more like putting it in your beer or just drying it, or just,
right.
Or the
Chewing
monks
it.
and nuns might make some preparations, or the farmers. But that whole kind of distillation and everything belongs to probably from 1200 onward, even though, like if you go to a farm in the Mediterranean, or at least in the old days, I've been to like Spain, they would have a big still, like a giant one like this. It's like the pot would be the size of, I don't know, like it could fit in a Volkswagen trunk or something.
Yeah, like a giant cauldron, huh?
Still, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's intimately tied in, yeah. But we still also just dry the herbs and make teas too. That's from ancient times down to the present. Yep.
That's right. No, the Theosophical Society, again, that was started by Madame Blavatsky. They wrote about you, and they have an article where you talk about the patterns and archetypes and plants and the configurations of energy. Explain that to us a little.
Oh, well, I didn't know it's quoted by them, yeah. But that's pretty cool, yeah, because I am a great admirer of the Theosophical Society. Yeah, so this also goes back to that Renaissance. Well, it goes back to, Native Americans, to people everywhere studying, understanding, tuning into the plants, and the plants are, they have these personalities, and the way to describe a personality, in our culture, in our subculture, in our culture, is like through astrology, through, they're a Taurus, or they got Gemini, Mercury and Cancer or something, and Venus in Cancer. So actually, those are referring back to our archetypal origins, and that's where the plants. That's how to really understand the plants. That's maybe what they're writing about. What I'm very good at and what I'm best known for. Is for the energetics of herbs. Are they hot, cold, damp, dry? Where are their organ affinities? Where are they? Their underlying patterns. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. They have their own personalities. Cool. They have their own. They're like people, right? Or how about this? People are like plants. I think there's this disease, or we are plants, right? We have, like I said earlier, the endocannabinoid system, where the human body makes its own THC, and I saw this insane type of skin disorder where the people's hands, or the people, whoever has this disorder, starts to turn into like tree bark or into a tree. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. And then there's a skin thing named after fish, like fish skin. I can't even pronounce the word, but yeah.
Tree bark disorder, it says here. That's why, we talked about the Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical Society. It all goes to the root race, and plants have roots. Are we plants?
Okay.
Well, we're not separated from them. That's for sure. The whole animal plant separation is, kind of. I guess that's taken for granted in folk medicine and regular, in biology and folk biology. Yeah, we all see that difference, but we're all more related, and we are all people. The plants have their personalities too. They just can't express them the same way we do, but they still, people talk to them a lot,
Some people think they're alive, they are alive, but some people think they're like alive and feel pain. Is there anything to that? The plants feel pain?
Oh yeah, they're finding that to be more and more true. Yeah, where they have they have receptors and like nerves. That's why they act on our nerves, because they can do things for themselves, so they can do things for us.
So Matthew, I started to grow some aloe because it was really good. You know, it's really conducive. The weather here, it proliferates the aloe. So I have one aloe plant that's starting to grow. This, like, I swear, it looks like a piece of asparagus, and it's growing exorbitantly high. It's the rest of the leaves are beautiful. I've had the plant for like 3 years. It's always been fine, but now all of a sudden it's growing this like 3-foot stalk of like an asparagus looking thing on the top. Where can I begin to find out what's going on with that?
What is that?
Oh, gee, I don't know. Is that like the flowering body or something? I don't know.
I have no idea.
I think he's it's like flowering. Yeah, it looks like a little lotus almost.
It looks like an asparagus top coming out of one leaf on the aloe. It's like an anomaly. But I don't know whether what he's trying to tell me.
Well, I don't live in the semi-arid region where you do. So I mean, you live where it's almost native, very close. So it must actually be able to thrive more than it would up here. I mean, I've never seen that. Of course, you know, you're used to New York and stuff in different places, and it never does that anywhere I've ever seen. But
amazing.
Maybe some of your listeners can call in and tell you or something, or email you. You got me. That's pretty interesting.
I'll take a picture of it and post it. And so I found you. Yeah. I found you because I sprained my hand, and I was looking for something, some kind of a remedy to take away the pain, and I discovered an article that was just brilliant, written by you, and that's how I contacted you.
Mm-hmm.
On bones and sprains, and I learned about mullein and bone set and how they work together, and also I guess nettles, to help heal the bones, and just a very thorough article. I mean, just incredible information.
Yeah, great work.
Amazing.
Yes, amazing stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Matt, I want to ask you about something though. Humans and plants. I mean, I keep putting us connected. You've heard of photosynthesis, obviously. I mean, they like us, the plants. We take in the sun's energy. Do we take in the sun's energy the same way, kind of like in a photosynthesis type of way?
Well, yeah, actually. Not exactly the same way, but we do take in the light. It turns out, so there's some research by, his name is Gerald Pollack, Pollack. He's quoted in the Sally Fallon, the Weston Price material. They have an article about him if you look up, maybe by Gerald Pollack. But so what he found was that the water in our bodies is different from the water out there, H2O, just like H2O water. If you like water on a water-loving surface, on a water sympathetic surface rather than an oil surface, in sunshine changes from H2O to, I think it's H2O2/H3O plus. Like it becomes semi-crystalline.
Amazing.
It changes its
like a plasma?
Content. Its structure. You can hardly see it, but it has more edge to it. More like your blood, has more edge. A drop of blood than a drop of water, or a drop of oil has that too. So, and this super water, it's not yet organic. It's just out there in the world, and then all life forms have this water inside them. And the sun shining through if you put a flashlight up to your hand, you can see the light shine through, and the sunlight shines through our hand and actually changes the water in our capillaries. If the H2O is in the wrong form, it will change it back to that, or we expel H2O if we have too much of it, of the waste material, the regular water, so that's the vapor coming out our lungs, and any water we drink is made into this type of water inside ourselves, and so the sun, we are dependent on the sun constantly. It's kind of strange. Even the color of the material it shines on makes a difference. So even color adds into our biology. So that's one way that, yeah, we are sensitive to the sun, but we don't have chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, and that's another thing, the porphyrins, it's called a porphyrin. That's what chlorophyll is, and so is our hemoglobin, that circulates in our blood, and those are both necessary for making energy, and the energy parts of us are all run by porphyrins, where there's oxygen exchange. The oxygen coming or going from biological systems all depend on this porphyrin, the same basic structure. And so, okay, so that's a long answer rather to your question.
Wow, amazing. So that must be why green and hearty greens are good for you. You put that in your body. It helps you.
Right. So I have a question about the water.
Yeah.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
And we're so reliant on the state or city for our water. Is there an herb that instead of like purchasing distilled, or maybe not purchasing distilled because we can make distilled water, do you recommend either distilling your water or adding an herb to the water to sort of take out the toxins, or does it matter, or what? What do you suggest? Because
well, I don't know what this little dog, my brother's dog, got inside the house here.
We're having a cat problem.
So it's about zero. It's about zero where I live.
They must sense each other.
Hi, little doggy. Okay. Okay. And
he knows the dog. I think my cat is actually bugging out because he must hear the sense of the dog.
Well, speaking of animals, I saw you have videos that mention rabbit medicine and bear medicine. What is that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's one. So the way I was taught by a Native American, Karen Sanders, she teaches up in Siskiyou County, California. But it's a worldwide doctrine, but she really got me to understand it. Like when the plant looks like an animal or is used by an animal particularly, then it's an animal medicine. She called it a spirit medicine. And those, a spirit signature, and those are more powerful. Those plants that look like animals or are used by the animals are particularly powerful and important, and they give more insight into physiological functions in the human body because we are animals. That I will grant totally. We are interrelated with the plants, but we are animals. We're just animals with this self-consciousness brain part added on, but otherwise everything else all the same thing as they got.
So we're not Swamp Thing walking around with like chlorophyll and made of plants, right?
We're more like animals.
We're more like animals.
Yes.
Okay.
So back to the water. Back to the water thing. So how do people deal with this? The fluoridated water, the whatever they.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I myself have lived in the country on well water since 1992, so I haven't really dealt with it personally so much. But fluorinated and chlorinated water is pretty obnoxious, and people should get some sort of cleaning system or buy their own water. I remember I was visiting a friend in San Francisco, and he gardened in his backyard, and he said, "Yeah, they changed the water purification plant 2 years ago, and I've never had slugs in my garden ever since then." So, that's great. On the one hand, you have a pesticide in your water supply that's killing the slugs that are so obnoxious. On the other hand, that's cells. That's going in. That's attacking you on a cellular level. And I can't say that all water systems are water. What's going on in different cities of the country and the world. But at any rate, that's potent stuff. So, I myself, I have pretty good water actually. The county agent said that our little village has about the best water in the county. So,
that's great.
You're lucky.
Well, you'll have to get another person to answer that question.
So let's go back to bones for a second. So what would be, people are always hurting themselves. It's just anything. You could have a house accident, any stupid thing, and
elderly people break bones all the time.
Yeah, my grandmother, 99, she's always breaking her bones.
Or their bones could be disintegrating, even deteriorating,
Yep.
right?
Well, that he also said for, he said that golden seal is the art, he said it's great for
discs.
For discs.
For discs.
Right.
Yeah, no, that may mean that it's also good for cartilage elsewhere in the body, but I don't know. But I really know it's really good for discs, for bulging or herniated or weak discs, or even whether it's an injury or just a whole bunch of discs going out. Yeah, let's see. Well, there's organ affinities. The herbs act on different structures, and like say black cohosh acts on the cerebral spinal fluid. And if you get whiplash, you get neck pain, you get lower back pain, you're all like your cerebral spinal fluid got all bunched up, and then you're depressed because that fluid's not running, and it backs up on your brain where the cerebral spinal fluid comes out of the bloodstream into the ventricles of your brain. And that's a remedy that's specific for that. That's not really for the bones, but yet the root of the black cohosh is white, black on the outside, kind of like comfrey. It's white. It's not goopy, not as slimy. But yeah, then broken bones, like the bone set, Native American name for it originally. I remember an Ojibwe showed me the name. I was teaching a class, and I wrote it down, and I said, "What's that mean?" And they said, "Bone to repair." All these white people say, "Oh, it's not for setting bones. It's not for setting bones." Like, yeah, get a life. Yeah, my India teacher, he used to call it bone mend. I didn't realize he was actually translating directly from the language where he was raised. It really, I've seen it clear up. It really accelerates bone growth, and it does it in a bunch of different ways, and it's better than comfrey because it helps set the bone in the right place. Comfrey will set the bone when it's in the wrong place, and it also tends to harden on the outside of the bone. It causes a callus on the outside of the bone. It is really good. Like old people, like my grandfather, when he was about 75, he broke his collarbone, and after a month it wasn't healed. And you can't set your collarbone, you just put your arm in a sling. And so he called me up, and I said, "Yeah, I'll send you something that was 1 part bone set, 1 part comfrey, and 1 part Solomon seal, which is really good for the tendons and ligaments." And in a month that was set well, and he completely recovered, which is good for an older person.
Yeah.
And so that's a good basic formula, but because the bone set makes the comfrey act a little smarter, comfrey just wants to join things together, just kabang, and bone set wants to get it in the right place that can join it. So, and mullein will help with that too. And mullein helps with the synovial fluid that lubricates around the spine and the joints. So some people, I've seen this happen so many times. I've given the mullein to someone with a stiff back, and the back will click, go back into place. Like it generates the fluids, not the cerebral spinal fluid, but the synovial fluids that go between the joints. And so that's a very good remedy for adhesions. The best remedy for adhesions is the one we call butterfly weed. Down where you are, the immortale, the Aesculapius species, and or genus. And that gets the fluids better and gets rid of adhesions. And that's why it's called pleurisy root. It gets rid of the adhesion in the lungs, which causes pleurisy. So they all have their beautiful little, very precise applications, and you put them together, and you get really good results. And I won't advertise the company name, but one company, they asked my permission to use my little formula I mentioned, which it was such a brainless formula. I said, "Oh yeah, sure, happy to have you use it." And that was 1 part Solomon seal, 1 part gravel root, and 1 part pleurisy root, because the gravel root opens up the capillary bed to secrete more secretions into those the extracellular matrix around the cells and around the sheaths of the muscles, and that helps lubricate. And that one and the pleurisy root, gravel root and pleurisy root have both helped with like frozen shoulder and frozen joints and things like that. So everything that's used, and then when the solid seal is very good for weak tendons or not tense, but overcontracted. Like as your tendons dry out with old age, either they get stretched and they won't go back into place, or they won't stretch. So it works for overstretch and understretch. Solid seal I single-handedly introduced about 1997-8 in my book, The Book of Herbal Wisdom, and that's caught on. It's because it's so useful. Almost everybody over the age of 40 or 50 at least, or 60 absolutely needs it for just their joints and joint health. And anybody in sports from age 13 to 30, they need or battering up their musculoskeletal system, they need solid seal. And so if you correct your musculoskeletal problems, you can correct them, you can cure them. And when you do that, then you don't need to worry about taking all these pain remedies, although, and we know how bad opioids are, the opioid crisis, because they just were handing that out indiscriminately. Now, fortunately, we have cannabinoids, which take care of a lot of pain for a lot of people, but we do want to cure these things if we can, and that's the thing. One thing I noticed, I got good at this, and I noticed the way some herbalists talk, they were just trying to take care of the pain, and I was like, oh, wait a second, I don't even know about those remedies. I never use them. I use the ones that cure the source of the pain. I asked one of my long-term students, I knew she knew how to, I actually want to find out, do you like use pain relievers, or you just cure the problem? She said, I just cure the problem.
Right, a lot of athletes, have been using cannabis. They don't like to tell about the positive test results. They mainly want to just dwell on the negative aspects of cannabis and athletes, but it's been known to help them with muscle spasms and pain, and boxers get hit in the head all the time. It helps them.
Also, they're using arnica. People use arnica too. Now it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. So, people are starting. Yeah, you see it in
arnica
stores.
Arnica is actually mainstream. Yeah. No.
But that wasn't maybe 15 years ago, right? I mean, maybe 15
Nope.
years.
No.
Not at all. Right.
It's like a hidden occultic knowledge. Now it seems like people know about it.
It's amazing. Well, it's been great having you on, Matthew. Before we go, I read an article here about the most indispensable herbs. What are some of those in your opinion?
Okay, well, that's on my website, I believe. Woodherbs.com is usually what I refer to, but I think I also own MatthewWoodHerbs.com. But, things that work for everybody, like marshmallow root moistens almost everybody, moistens the skin and the internal and the joints and everything. That would go well with pleurisy root and gravel root. They're not quite as universal. I'd say boneset or gravel root would be good to know about.
Wait, I have a question though. Is pleurisy root
sumac in that top 15? Melissa works for everybody. Melissa relaxes everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yarrow's good for cuts. You just have to have yarrow and around it for a bad cut, not for just a little. Oh, it's just oozing a little blood. No, it's for gushing. It's for a really bad cut. So, yeah.
Right, I read
those are a few of them.
I read in your article that they said that you put the yarrow. A guy he cut himself with a chainsaw, and then he put the yarrow on immediately. Chewed it up and put it on, and then he took it off, and then he put on calendula? No, but that really helped.
Well, that'd be good. Calendula, yarrow stops the blood flowing, and there may be other remedies that help better with forming scar tissue, but when you put on yarrow, you won't get much of a scar either. It's so neat. It looks so nicely. Yeah.
Amazing.
So.
Incredible. Thank you so much for being on with us, Matthew. Hope to bring you on many more times. Give my audience your website and where they can find you.
Yeah, so that's woodherbs.com, and then there's Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism on Facebook. And you can hear me, there's both free and for cost. I got to make a living. Classes. There's probably a class on the musculoskeletal system, which is one of my favorite, one of the things I'm best at. And
is that an online class?
And that's at the Institute. And then there's all the books by me. The Book of Herbal Wisdom is the absolute most approachable for the layperson.
Nice.
And that's really a good book. But I wrote 8 books so far, and I'm writing more. So
for the meat and potatoes people, they could understand the book, right?
Yeah, you can go on his website and see the amount of books. I mean, they're very serious books. You can buy one right from him. So
amazing. And we're looking forward to your seminar or your lecture with a remote viewer. Also, ancient languages, or what is that? Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to tune in. Yeah, let's see. So that's Wednesday at 7 p.m. our time. Yeah, so we just try to do some spiritually oriented classes too. They're a little smaller and stuff. We don't have a big audience. We've been doing them just a shorter time. But yeah, he's a remote viewer, John Bachland, and so we're going to be talking, and so it's kind of shamanism, my side, and remote viewing, his side.
That's right.
And so we will be talking about it some. Also, I will be teaching, I don't know how big your radio reception is down that way, but I teach in Santa Fe. I'll be teaching 3 classes this spring, February through March, April, in Santa Fe. That ought to be on my website. That'll be somewhere or other.
That sounds great. Yes.
So that's good. And my sponsor there, she's a remote viewer too. So I could get in touch with, because you guys are remote viewers also.
Oh,
shh.
I'll tell you, I don't want the men in black coming to get me.
The 1st Battalion.
I know nothing. Anyway, thank you so much, Matthew, Mr. Wood, for being on. It was an absolute pleasure. Just a plethora of information. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. I look forward to talking again.
One last question.
One last question from Jah
Jah. Do you offer classes online as well?
Oh, we do. Yes, we do. You can look at those sites. Yes.
Okay.
So,
that's great to know.
Matthew Wood's Institute of Herbalism.com. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, it's been great connecting. Bye.
Bye. Wow, what a fun show.
Packed with knowledge.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Well, that does it. We'll be back Monday. I'll be interviewing my good friend Christian T. Harris. And that does it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Bruce Montalvo Show. Special guest and co-host Jah Jah joined me today. See ya.
Montalvo Broadcasting Network.